One syllable, unchained. And with it, a future stepped forward, barefoot, steady, silent no more, yet still not loud. In the observatory's broken shell, beneath shattered stars and exposed sky, Elias opened an analog journal, hand-stitched, scavenged from forgotten pages. No screens, no recording devices, just ink and memory. He titled it, The Last Grammar of War. Line by line, he wrote, The Enclave, the drills, the first time Lyra blinked a warning, Milo's glyph, Myra's core, the fall of harmonics. The day's silence reshaped the meaning of power. He did not write to teach. He wrote to remember, because language, even wordless, must be passed on. His pen trembled as he reached the final page. Below the silence, a world moved differently now. Towers no longer pulsed, orders no longer bound. Only rhythm remained, human and more than human. The war had not ended with a victor. It had ended when noise was no longer mistaken for meaning. Elias looked out at the horizon, and on the final line, he wrote, We didn't win because we were louder. We won because we learned how to be heard without noise. We built a language they couldn't take, one wordless child at a time. The ruins of Kaler, 9 no longer smoldered. They bloomed. Children painted symbols along broken walls. Loops, spirals, arcs, gestures frozen in color. Adults followed their lead, not as rulers, not as rebels, but as learners. Hands replaced commands. Blinks replaced orders. Shared breath became the pulse of progress. Break observers stood among them, watching with wary awe. They did not speak. They could not. Not here. Not anymore. The old empire had crumbled in its own echo. The new world did not shout. It breathed. It blinked. It began. On a Vrake colony orbiting a pale gas giant, beneath the filtered glow of twin suns, children played outside the education dome. The dust court, meant for order drills and harmonic coordination exercises, echoed with something different. Not noise, not commands, something more deliberate. They moved in silence, eyes blinking in rhythm, shoulders shifting subtly, fingertips tapping smooth stones in precise, echoing patterns. To the harmonist instructor watching from the shade, it looked like chaos. Undisciplined, asynchronous. But to the children, each gesture was structure, each movement, meaning. A game, yes, but one with rules deeper than sound. One boy paused, glanced at 2 others, then tapped a rhythm across the cracked ground. The others responded instantly, adjusting their position like dancers shifting weight in invisible cadence. No speech, no signal, just pattern. The instructor stepped forward, voice taught. Communicate properly. Align your syntax. Speak or be removed. The children looked up, then down. One girl bent and drew in the dirt, a spiral flanked by 3 bars. The glyph, the one that once collapsed the system of control. The harmonist stiffened. The shape meant nothing and everything. It tickled the edge of archived protocols, the corner of training logs she was too junior to access. Still, her gut tightened. She summoned a drone. Its scanner passed over the glyph and blinked red. Unregistered semiotic pattern. Irregular. Non-compliant. Anomaly. The children didn't wait. No laughter. No whispers. They scattered with deliberate grace, like birds taking flight. Not fleeing discipline, but completing a routine. No sound passed between them, just understanding. The instructor stood frozen, gaze lingering on the pattern now scuffed beneath dust and heel. She said nothing, filed no report, but she remembered, because what she had seen wasn't just misbehavior. It was transmission, a signal not taught through curriculum, but inherited through presence, a language of silence, and once received, never forgotten. Across the colony network, a surveillance AI flagged a phrase in its passive scan log. Pattern deviation detected in educational sector. The entry was low priority. A junior researcher tagged it. No one responded in time. By then, the symbol had been scratched into other courtyards. Other children had begun blinking in rhythm. They couldn't explain why, but they felt it. They remembered something they never learned. They passed it without speaking, without meaning to. Because the future wasn't written in sound anymore. It traveled in movement, in rhythm, in absence, a truth no empire could parse, a whisper without voice, a rebellion without speech. The silence had spread. But he rewatches the feeds. Again, again. Each time his daughter flinches, his jaw tightens. But when she smiles, something beneath his expression twitches, something ancient buried beneath power. One night, he dreams. The last time this happened, his brother had still been alive. They had run through the Terran gardens, barefoot and breathless, long before the emotional purges. His brother's laughter was loud, disruptive, dangerous. He had cried at the tribunal when his brother was executed. He never cried again. Until now. The next day, he cancels all meetings. That night, he sent for Mira. She arrives to find him alone, crowns set aside. No guards. No advisors. He studies her. You gave her something we engineered out of our kind. Mira waits. She smiles. And I remember a voice that used to call my name in the dark. He doesn't command her to explain. He asks, "What did you do to my daughter? What did you do to me?" She answers, "I reminded her she was alive. And perhaps you too." The silence that follows is heavier than any judgment. In the morning, she is not stopped when she leaves. The Los Vrek, once a curious observer, now becomes an active conspirator. He extracts Myra's therapeutic logs, layers of neural readouts, stress codon variations, and hormonal responses. Her methods aren't just healing, they're rewiring cognition. Emotional engrams are being reignited. Subversive neural pathways, once dormant in Dravari physiology, are lighting up like constellation maps. He correlates the data with older cultural relics, artifacts, music, even discarded nursery melodies outlawed after the empathy purges. It all fits. Emotion isn't weakness. It was erased, and now it's returning. The Los encrypts the findings, attaches psychological trajectory models, and sends the file to Commander Ivanhoe. The message reads, "She's not infiltrating their bodies. She's waking their minds." Commander Hale receives it aboard the Resistance outpost hidden in the asteroid belts. The warboard glows with sabotage plans, power junctions, network scramblers, bioweapon protocols. But Hale stares only at Myra's files. They've spent decades trying to break Dravari obedience with force. And now, one human healer has done it with memory. They begin preparations for something unthinkable. Not invasion. Infection. A cascade of emotional contagion seeded into the very core of the Empire's elite. The strategy shifts. This won't be a war of soldiers. It will be a war of awakenings. Whispers pass through the palace like static through old wires. A courtier forgets protocol and thanks Mira aloud. A child begins drawing without command. A guardsman weeps in private after holding a discarded lullaby cube. Mira is granted a private suite within the palace. It is officially for proximity to her patient. But it's more than that. She walks unescorted now. Sentinels don't flinch. Even the chamber lights dim when she enters. A recalibration initiated not by command, but by algorithmic accommodation. The palace has begun to recognize her presence. And the Emperor watches. He watches as Ilari hums, as she calls Mira kind, as the court silently bends to accommodate new softness. He has not revoked the order. He has not issued decree. But Mira knows. The shift has begun. From within the most absolute seat of control in the known galaxy, something fragile and terrifying is blooming. Curiosity. The Resistance doesn't need to fire the first shot. The Empire is already infected. It just doesn't know it's healing. The fortress has dreamed, and it cannot undream. Can love, grief, and memory be weapons more powerful than war? Beneath the Imperial Citadel, Myra's once humble clinic now operates under heightened surveillance. Security cameras blink red during sessions. Guards linger longer, pretending indifference while monitoring every flicker of emotion. Metal hallways thrum with tension, sterile and cold. But inside her rooms, something almost sacred takes place. Still they come. Dravari generals, haunted by command trauma, request Myra's presence in after-action chambers. Their eyes twitch when she speaks softly. Their hands tremble when she tells them they don't need to be fixed, they need to feel. An elite assassin, known only as Crescent, arrives without escort. She claims phantom pain in a limb she never lost. Mira doesn't question. She offers Crescent her palm. The assassin flinches, then breathes. One session becomes two. A third follows. A war archivist visits. Silent. Expressionless. He says nothing during the exam, but returns 3 times in a week. On his last visit, he shudders when Mira replays a recording of a child's laughter to a recovering soldier. Later, someone finds him weeping beside his console. These are not rebels. They are tools of the Empire, etched in command, forged in obedience. And yet, Myra's methods begin to rewire them. They become slower to obey, quieter, more aware. Each leaves altered, not just healed, but humanized. Her sessions are forbidden. Still, her waiting list grows. Dr. the Los Vrek intercepts encrypted chatter, each phrase colder than the last. High Minister Kale refers to Mira as the biochemical infection. A secret directive requests her neural integration through procedural loyalty augmentation. Translation: lobotomy cloaked in imperial neural interface. The Los warns Mira discreetly. She doesn't flinch, though her hands pause a moment longer on Crescent's pulse during treatment. Then theory arrives not as rumor, but in blood. During a surprise inspection, a disguised pulse disruptor is passed off as a scanner. It targets Nuri's relay node. The burst shatters part of the empathic circuit. Nuri convulses. For 3 hours, he can't maintain coherent linkage. He survives. Barely. Mira spends the night at his side, recalibrating the relay by hand. It's an ancient, fragile task. One slip could erase Nuri's emotional bridge forever. She whispers, "They'll kill the parts of us they don't understand." In the morning, she stands before her patients without a tremor. But when she meets Crescent's gaze, there is fire behind her calm. The Empire doesn't fear Mira because she is human. It fears her because she's changing what it means to be Dravari. A coded signal reaches Myra's private channel. Commander Ivan Hale's voice shimmers through static, projected across secure compression. "We have a model. The simulations work. We only need one target." They propose a new kind of strike, not against walls, not against soldiers, but against the Emperor's mind. Thalos data confirms it. Myra's therapy is unlocking repressed neural memory clusters. Trauma, once buried, resurfaces. With it comes vulnerability, regret, identity. Valkyrian dreams now. That makes him a doorway. Hale wants Mira to deliver the payload, a synthetic emotional cascade, codenamed the empathic mirror. It will tap directly into the Emperor's buried grief and project it into conscious awareness. If triggered successfully, it could unravel his command structure. Mira refuses. "I'm not an assassin." Hale says, "You'd be the first healer to bring down an empire without killing a soul." Later that night, Mira stands at Nuri's bedside. The relay flickers. His hand shakes when he tries to reach hers. She says, "Healers aren't supposed to have enemies." Nuri looks at her and nods, faintly. They started this war when they turned empathy into a crime. And with that, she answers Hale's message. We proceed. Together, Mira and the Los begin crafting the most dangerous neuro-emotional artifact ever designed. It isn't a weapon. It's a memory. Specifically, a lattice of reconstructed emotional patterns tailored to Emperor Valkyrian's own psychological scars. They begin with known trauma, the death of his brother. The sound of screams echoing in silent halls. The mother who kissed him once and never again. Then they map the hidden griefs, extracted through watching archived footage of his interactions, biometric spikes during therapy sessions, his altered pupil dilation when Alari smiles. Each piece is fed into the cascade. Layered emotion fractals, recursive empathy loops, simulated nostalgia wrapped in personalized context. The result, the empathic mirror. A single-use artifact designed to reflect the Emperor's deepest truths. Delivery must be direct. No broadcasts. No distance tech. It must sync with Vicarian's neural interface via skin-to-skin contact and a verbal activation key. Mira programs the phrase herself. I see you, not as what you became, but as what you were meant to be. A simple line, a scalpel to the soul. If it fails, her consciousness might be absorbed, erased, or overwritten. If it succeeds, a god might learn how to break. A royal summons arrives for a ceremonial reassessment of Alari. Officially, it is a scheduled consultation. Unofficially, it is the only window Mira will have. She enters alone. Her neural glove carries the mirror. No weapon, no armor. Vicarian stands waiting. He dismisses the guards with a wave. They stare at one another across the room. Silence churns. They say you've made gods weep, Vicarian says. Mira approaches. Steady. Calm. He narrows his gaze. What will you make of me? She reaches forward, fingers brushing the side of his face. Not make, she whispers. Unmake. Her glove activates. Neural pulses flood the link. The mirror engages. The cascade hits like lightning folded into memory. Vicarian's face doesn't contort, it shatters. His eyes widen. His breath catches. Then, his brothers scream. The moment the tribunal rendered judgment. The silence of his mother, turning away. The garden where laughter once lived. It pours in. Not data. Not fact. Feeling. He shakes. He whispers one word. Why? The guards return, but freeze at the sight. The emperor, unbent for decades, trembles on his knees, one hand clutched to his chest. He doesn't issue orders. He sobs. And in the corridor outside, Mira walks away. Behind her, the foundations of the empire tremble. What happens when the most untouchable man in the galaxy sees himself and weeps? Victory Day on Tessarian Prime was more than celebration. It was performance. A monument to silence, obedience, and conquest. The grand gallery of oracles shimmered beneath refracted starlight, a temple of glass and void where Dravari elites gathered in ornate regalia. Military banners flowed like liquid from vaulted ceilings. Ambient harmonics echoed the empire's anthem, cold, mathematical, absolute. At the gallery's heart stood the throne of continuance, a monolith of obsidian and living alloy. Upon it, Emperor Vicarian, unblinking, a silhouette of flawless command. Mira Elon was brought forward like a tool on display. She wore no chains, but her lab coat bore sterilization tags, a subtle mark of containment. The summons was framed as a gift, a demonstration of alien therapies before the imperial court, a display of mercy's limits. She bowed, not in submission, but acknowledgement. Behind the throne, the Los Vrek prepared to seize the imperial stream. In the shadows of the upper gallery, Nuri positioned himself with neural flares primed beneath his robe. Mira stepped onto the luminous dais. Vicarian met her gaze, impassive. His nod was a command. She began to speak. Her voice was calm, laced with intention. She described the fragility of feeling, the strength born not from control, but connection. Then she paused. One breath, one heartbeat, and touched her temple. The empathic mirror activated with no sound. No flash, only resonance. A pulse of encoded memory surged through Myra's neural pathways and bridged into Vicarian's consciousness. He blinked. Once. Then again. His pupils dilated. His body locked in place. Within him, the flood began. A child's laughter, once forbidden. His brother's eyes, full of innocence and betrayal. The execution chamber. A lullaby, barely remembered, crawling back into memory like sunlight through a tomb. Vicarian swayed. His breath hitched. Then came the scream. It wasn't fury. It was grief, raw, shattering, human. A gasp swept the audience. High ministers recoiled. Soldiers reached for weapons, uncertain whether to defend or flee. The emperor collapsed. He landed not with force, but like a statue, surrendering to time. He covered his face and wept. In that moment, the most feared being in the known galaxy became vulnerable. The court stood paralyzed. Cameras hovered. Protocol fractured. Mira knelt beside him, but did not speak. Behind them, The Los seized the moment. One keystroke unlocked the data cascade. Therapy logs, patient testimonies, encrypted overlays detailing emotional reclamation. The feed bypassed all Imperial firewalls. Across 1,000 worlds, the image appeared, an emperor sobbing beside the human who healed his daughter. The unthinkable had happened. It had been witnessed. The scream lingered longer than the anthem. From balconies, shadows moved. Imperial assassins drew weapons, blades shimmering with null-charge venom. But Nuri struck first. Neural flares bloomed like inverted stars, pulses of silent light erupting into precise chaos. The assassins convulsed, not in death, but in disarmament. Neural patterns scrambled. Motor functions failed. One collapsed mid-lunge, blade clattering harmlessly to the crystalline floor. The Los stood beneath the data stream, eyes locked on the signal as it climbed into orbit. No part of the Empire was untouched. Battle cruisers paused maneuvers. Border colonies halted simulations. The image repeated, the Emperor of Silence in tears, and Myra's words echoed in every language. Empathy is not infection. It is memory rediscovered. The court flailed for meaning. Protocols buckled. The speaker of the writ tried to reassert ceremony. No one listened. In the atrium, a high priestess collapsed, whispering a prayer once banned. An aide clutched a small object, a child's drawing she had hidden in her sleeve for years. She cried, and still Vakirian did not rise. He knelt, and Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. The mirror had done its work. Security descended, weapons humming, orders flying. But Mira rose slowly, no fear in her gaze. They shackled her wrists, not as a criminal, but as a threat they didn't know how to name. She didn't resist. She turned to the Emperor, still hunched beneath the weight of reawakened memory. And she said, "Now you can choose to become more than your crown." The silence that followed rang louder than any command. Then one of the royal guards, armor still gleaming, dropped to his knees. Then another. The chief archivist, once a mouthpiece of control, wept openly. One by one, the hierarchy fractured. Not from rebellion, not from war, but from awakening. As Mira was led away, the Los raised the broadcast once more. The words scrolled across every screen. Let this be the last throne built on silence. The streets filled not with protest, but with song. Old lullabies, forgotten folk melodies. Human and Dravari children alike sang them beneath open skies. The resistance did not storm the gates. They didn't need to. The Emperor had seen himself, and remembered, when the tyrant breaks, who dares rebuild the soul of an empire? A week after Victory Day, Tessarian Prime breathes beneath a hush not imposed, but chosen. No orders blare from the high towers. No formations march. The grand plazas, once paved in ceremony, echo with uncertain footsteps. The Emperor has vanished, not assassinated, not overthrown, simply gone. In his place, a question remains. What happens when silence is no longer a virtue? Rumors bloom faster than truth. Some claim mind control. Others whisper of ancestral weakness. One phrase echoes in digital alleys and cloistered shrines. He wept. For us. Across a dozen systems, the flood begins. Myra's methods leak through unsecured channels. A librarian on Draz, 4 replicates her therapy scripts. A field commander on Ural. 6 converts a weapons bay into a recovery center. Soldiers surrender arms not as traitors, but as the first act of healing. Some disappear into solitude, broken by what they've done. Others emerge, blinking into a galaxy that never let them feel. And for the first time in Imperial record, no censure arrives. No mandates. No denouncements. Only the sound of breathing, as if the Empire itself has exhaled for the first time in centuries. Mira sits beneath a sterile light. Her chamber gleams with antiseptic quiet, but no chains hold her. She is not interrogated. No torture arrives. Yet this is no sanctuary. Isolation is the new prison. She's kept alive, federal monitored. Her methods dissected in classified vaults. Her pulse charted like an artifact. But no one dares speak to her. Outside, Nuri limps through government halls, bruises still dark across his side. He walks with silence and purpose, his relay scar humming beneath his collar. He gathers them. The general who refused to suppress a riot. The assassin who disarmed herself before her kill order came. The archivist who rewrote a military chant into a lullaby. The child who painted her parents from memory. They come without weapons, without banners, only memory and choice. They sign a petition, not of rebellion, but of recognition. Mira Elon is not a fugitive. She is precedent, and through Nuri's quiet force, the Empire's healers march not in protest, but in testimony. The chamber echoes with ceremonial gravity. Gold-veined walls, polished obsidian floors, and thousands of eyes watch from across the stars. Mira stands shackled in ceremonial binding. Her gaze steady, her back unbent. The judges speak in codes of conduct, referring to moral deviation, cultural contamination, unauthorized therapeutic engagement. Mira does not speak. Then Vakirian enters. He no longer glows with imperial resonance. His armor is gone. His shoulders sag, but his voice carries unchanged. He speaks not to the court, but to her. This woman did not break me. She healed what was broken, and reminded me I was never born a god. I was forged in chains. Silence thickens. He looks to the judges, then to the galaxy. Let this be my final order. Release her. Then he speaks 3 words the Empire never taught him. I step down, and the floor beneath imperial history shifts. The High Council gathers in haste. Too many factions, too much fear, too much change. Their verdict is unanimous in language, divided in intent. Exile, to protect her from the world she changed. To silence her without martyrdom. To make her disappear without killing what she stands for. Mira nods once when they deliver the sentence. She asks for no destination, only that Nuri be allowed to choose. When the shuttle arrives, Nuri waits beside it, a small pack over one shoulder. His steps are careful but sure. I'm coming with you, he says. She touches his relay scar, smiles. No farewells are spoken, only a boarding ramp, a closing door, and the echo of something gentler than conquest. Behind them, votes are already being cast. 12 days after exile, the council meets again, not to judge, but to build. The Sentient Healing Accord is ratified by a margin of 4 votes. Its articles are few but seismic. Emotional suppression via neurological engineering shall be classified as trauma. Memory erasure without consent is deemed psychological violation. Behavioral obedience conditioning, when applied in military recruitment, constitutes systemic abuse. Healing is to be recognized as a right of sentient autonomy, not a privilege granted by state or caste. The accord passes quietly, but its tremors ripple through the empire. Hospitals across Dravari space begin retraining staff in empathic protocols. Children are taught to name their feelings without shame. Soldiers are offered treatment without stigma. The phrase becomes mantra. To heal is to serve truth. And in orbit, aboard a ship with no flag, Mira opens her tablet. A message blinks. Protocol M1 recognized. Accord ratified. She leans back, not triumphant, not at peace, but beginning. The Empire did not fall by force. It wept, and through that weeping, it learned to breathe again. When mercy wins, what follows? Asterisk, asterisk. Years have passed. The galaxy has changed, but not completely. On a quiet, green-veined world at the edge of known space, Mira Elon tends to an outpost of students and trauma patients. Her clinic is a mosaic of languages and species. Dravari children drawing their feelings, human cadets learning breath-based triage, and former soldiers unlearning violence. There are no banners, no titles, just peace, tentative but earned. At dusk, Mira walks the halls barefoot, correcting technique with a whisper or a glance. She smiles more now, but part of her still listens for echoes in the dark. The wind shifts. A shadow appears in her doorway. The Los Vrek, older, statelier, wearing the insignia of a unified empathic treaty, a coalition formed for what she once began. They exchange no greetings, just a nod. He sits across from her, and places a small black box on her desk. Inside, a sleek, neural smooth shard of refined, empathic mirror tech. The Low speaks carefully. There's a war coming. Not here, but soon. And they don't fear guns. They fear this. He gestures to the device. The power to see themselves. The thing you gave us. The thing they're trying to erase before it begins. Mira studies the device. It hums with memory. Not hers, but the potential of others. She sees the choice laid bare. Return to war, or let another people be lost in silence. She closes the box and looks at the Los. I won't build another mirror to make someone beg. The Los nods. But would you help them remember before it's too late? Outside, her students gather for an empathy exercise. Laughter rings through the trees. Mira rises, turns to the stars overhead, distant, bright, uncaring. Then she whispers, only if we teach them what healing means first. And in that moment, the healer's path turns outward again, not to conquer, but to remind another empire how to feel.